Hello everyone, welcome back. Well, it appears that Keir Starmer has backed down after massive amounts of pressure from several Labour MPs over the welfare reform bill that they hope to push through. Speaking personally, I've got a friend that I've mentioned many times on the channel who was really worried about all of this. Sent me a message last night, some of which I can't repeat because it would get the pair of us arrested. But there you go. The important thing is there has been some concessions. Now, reading the information, I think it's more of a face-saving, save my own arse exercise rather than doing the right thing, but they've dressed it up as such. There is an article that I want to share with you right now and react to it to a certain degree so you understand what's going on. Now, the title of this article is "We've Listened." Keir Starmer confirms welfare U-turn as leading Labour rebels celebrate PM's positive climb down. Now, I did an interview with another YouTuber yesterday, which is going to be out next week. And one of the things that we discuss is what the whole purpose of an MP is. You know, you get in, you're paid over £90,000 a year plus expenses. And the whole idea is to keep yourself in, remain electable, remain elected. Some are better at it than others, because at the end of the day, that would be a hell of a pay cut if you ended up getting booted out. So I think that's what this is all about, rather than doing the right thing by everybody else. But let's go through this. So Keir Starmer has confirmed his government will water down, so it's not scrapping straight away, it's water down its proposed cuts to Britain's ballooning benefits bill. Why is it ballooning? You know, you complain and you spit and stir about it ballooning, but why? Why is it ballooning? The Prime Minister, who was pushing for a £5 billion cut to welfare spending by slashing personal independence payments and universal credit, completed an enormous climb down just days after dismissing 120 Labour rebels as being noises off. Dismissing, go away, or, you know, that constipated Dalek voice. You know, it stinks of party politics here straight away, just in the opening salvo, doesn't it? But £5 billion cut, surely there's other things which are more not so English centric that we could save £5 billion on rather than punishing sick and disabled people. But we continue. In the early hours of Friday morning, Downing Street admitted that Starmer was making three major concessions to prevent the biggest rebellion of his premiership. There's that thing again, rebellion. How to stay elected. You know, if those 120 MPs followed through on their threat or whatever else, could make for interesting times for that majority, couldn't it? A number 10 spokesman said, "We've listened to MPs who support the principle of reform, but are worried about the pace of change for those already supported by the system." That's the thing. I mean, I brought you a video yesterday or the day before regarding a different subject, regarding age limits on taxis. And again, it's that pace of change. How quick is this going to change? People need to get used to the idea. The package will preserve the social security system for those who need it by putting it on a sustainable footing, provide dignity for those unable to work, supports those who can reduce anxiety for those currently in the system. For those unable to work, this is something that slips through the net. Yes, there are people that take the piss, but there are many people on these benefits, on these systems, that have to be because they don't have any other choice. My friend, 30 years. I've known him 30 years. And when I first met him, he worked far harder than I ever did and do. And I worked bloody hard. And he's got to a point where he's no longer able to. And it's people like that that get really worried about what the government's going to do next. And one thing I found absolutely disgraceful yesterday, I don't know if anybody knows the name Craig McKinley. He used to be the MP for South Thanet, Conservative MP, and he lost his hands and his feet due to sepsis. And he still works, he still does whatever. And they rolled him out. See if I can do it, get off your bum and go to work. on my X account, I told you exactly what I think about that. Go and have a look, it's on there. Our reforms are underpinned by Labour values and our determination to deliver the change the country voted for last year. No, we didn't vote for change. We voted for you, or many voted for you, I certainly didn't, because we were pissed off with the Tories. In a letter setting out the Prime Minister's concessions, Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall told Labour MPs that the government will still provide PIP unchanged for all current claimants. You know, that is a big relief, because there are many there sitting on PIP thinking, this ends people. It doesn't improve people, it ends people. What you fail to understand, and I've been in this position myself, is when you are on your own, when you don't feel like you have much hope, when you're relying on certain things to happen in a certain way day to day and they actually don't, your anxiety will increase. Your depression will then increase. The walls start closing in, and that's where the top of car parks and big tree branches become appealing to get yourself out of that situation, because at the end of the day, if you're not here anymore, it ain't going to bother you, is it? That happens more than you realise. Kendall added that all new claims made after November 2026 will face new eligibility requirements. So from November next year, this is where they're pushing the can down the road again, those trying to get PIP will face tougher requirements. So in other words, they're feeding it in at the front end and really making sure that people still in the system are relatively untouched. When it comes to PIP reviews and all that sort of thing, we'll have to see if that remains the case. The Leicester West MP added that all existing recipients of the Universal Credit's health element and any new claimant meeting a strict conditions criteria will also have their incomes fully protected in real terms. I love that, real terms. What does real terms mean, I wonder? Probably a kick in the bollocks. A third concession centres around guaranteeing that the government will conduct a ministerial review of the PIP assessment. This has gone through the ringer quite a lot. I mean, I remember one time somebody told me they were asked if they could pick a cardboard box up, an empty cardboard box, from the middle of a room. Oh yeah, I can do that. Fail. You know, it's all designed to trip you up. And the other thing as well, when you apply for PIP and all this sort of thing, the application's that thick. They don't want people actually applying for it successfully. In her letter, Kendall concluded at the heart of this review will be co-production with disabled people, the organisations that represent them, and MPs, so their views are voiced and heard. Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? You are supposed to be our voice. You are supposed to be the people that respond to our concerns, respond to our grievances, and you are not, because otherwise we wouldn't be in this position. More than 120 Labour MPs have been poised to rebel against Starmer over his previous measures to strip PIP from 800,000 people. Could you imagine it? 800,000, sparking fears of a confidence vote and perhaps even a leadership contest. So that alone really says to me that this whole thing is an arse-covering, arse-saving exercise more than anything else. But those on PIP are okay. The reasoned amendment was signed by 126 backbench Labour MPs, including Vicky Foxtrot, who resigned from her post, I said Foxtrot as in Foxtrot Oscar, Foxcroft, from her post as a government whip to oppose the previous proposed cuts. Leading Labour rebel Dame Meg Hiller, who chairs the Treasury Select Committee, handed the Prime Minister a boost this morning by describing Starmer's concessions as good and workable. Meet halfway, maybe. Following hours of negotiations, Hiller said this is a good and workable compromise and shows that the Labour government has listened. No, they haven't. You've wanted to save your asses, that's what this is about. and that working together with Labour MPs can move forward to support vulnerable disabled people, reform the welfare system in a just and inclusive way, and contribute towards the economic growth and prosperity this country so desperately needs. Despite appearing to stave off an authority challenging rebellion, the Prime Minister will likely still need to deal with a number of disgruntled backbenchers from the left of the Labour Party. Norwich South MP Clive Lewis, who served as Shadow Defence Secretary under Jeremy Corbyn, said every MP will have to weigh up the deal for themselves. Alas, this smacks of a face-saving exercise more than it does doing the right thing by sick and disabled. I'm afraid I agree with that assessment. No impact assessment, no co-production with disabled groups, no deal. I'll still be voting against. Richard Burgon, who sits as a member of the Socialist Campaign Group and briefly lost the Labour whip after rebelling over the two-child benefit cap last summer, added, "These changes may make a very bad bill less awful." Compromise often does. I mean, there's a thing in there, isn't there? Very, very much. Lost the whip. There shouldn't be whips. Therefore, you would be dealing with your constituents rather than party interests. The job of an MP, after all, is to remain elected. But the vast majority of the cuts remain and still forces hundreds of thousands into poverty. You know, I can tell you a story. Years ago, when I was on the bones of my arse, so to speak, I had a situation where I think it was something daft, like £10 or £20 a month left in the kitty. Once my bills are paid, how do you live on that? Crazy. Nowhere near good enough. I'll vote against the bill. The government shouldn't be balancing the books on the backs of disabled people. Meanwhile, Tory Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride last night described Starmer's U-turn as a sign of weakness. Somebody was going to say that sooner or later, weren't they? He said, if confirmed, this is the latest in a growing list of screeching U-turns from this weak Labour government. Under pressure from his own MPs, Starmer has made another completely unfunded spending commitment. Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Helen Whately added, this is another U-turn. That's the general feeling, isn't it? Yes, it may be a U-turn, but I think it's more saving of one's own arse. With the sickness benefits bill set to reach $100 billion by 2030, the country needs action, but Labour has lurched from a bad plan to a next to nothing plan. The latest deal with Labour rebels sounds a lot like a two-tier benefits system, more likely to encourage anyone already on benefits to stay there rather than get into work, or perhaps safeguarding those that really need it, maybe. We made a serious offer to Keir Starmer in the national interest if he was willing to gripe the challenge of getting the welfare bill down and more people into work, making savings to avoid putting up taxes, but instead he's done yet another U-turn. Critics also warn that the spotlight being placed on Number 10's U-turn shenanigans will mean that the Prime Minister faces fury for pursuing controversial policies while exhausting significant political capital. Rebels were said to have become emboldened by the Prime Minister's previous U-turns, including that of winter fuel payments. Well, that's another one, isn't it? Well, several things can be taken out of this. You know, there are those on sickness benefits who need them, are entitled to them, and should have them. They need to be protected at all costs, because inevitably most of them would have done their debt, paid their debt to society, worked very hard for 40 years and no longer able to, so they need protecting. There are those that take the piss, that shouldn't be on benefits at all. So to that end, should there be some kind of application safeguarding, you know, all right, we'll give you this, but we need assurances from this medical professional, this and so on and so on. Because sometimes a lot of these things, and I'm only speaking as an uneducated person here, they take your word for it, and then they wonder why they got the problem. We have a overpopulation crisis in this country, which we know a lot of the reasons for. How many of those are immediately claiming benefits? You know, and then if you look at the sheer billions of pounds that are leaving this country every single year, and I mean billions. We had a guy that usually doesn't turn up anywhere in a suit visited Downing Street the other day, and I'm sure he probably left a few billion quid richer. There's all these little leaks here, there and everywhere. And what do? They pick on the disabled, pick on the weak, pick on the infirm. It's disgusting. It really is disgusting. Anyway, that's the end of that article. I hope that summarises roughly what's going on. Another great channel to go and have a look at with regard to this is the Dynamic Duo, another good channel. Have a look at this video here, which is some positive action you can take with regard to not only this, but other things that matter as well. Please hit the like button. I appreciate that very much. Subscribe to the channel. We're creeping up slowly again. And as always, I look forward to talking to you again very soon.